Hello everyone, it's John Carl here with Digest Publishing, and it's my good fortune to be sitting down with my friend and colleague, Gerardo Del Real. So he's our in-house resource expert, and he is widely known as the go-to authority on gold in the junior mining space. And Gerardo, what a time to be talking about gold, because as I'm sure everyone watching can appreciate, we are seeing big moves from gold that are bigger, faster, and more closely watched than any in decades. And that's why we're here today, because all of this movement in gold has been making fortunes for us as resource investors. And as all of you watching will hear over the next few minutes, we are at the beginning of what could be one of the most important gold investing opportunities literally in centuries. Now, this is not an exaggeration, because there's one enormous opportunity that most resource investors are overlooking. So let's get right to it. Gerardo, to get us started, now we're getting so many questions about gold from our readers. And the first is, now that it's seeing historical highs, has the price of gold peaked? And is it too late to buy in? And then the second question, it's the exact opposite. Is gold pulling back from these highs, and is the boom over? So it seems that readers are worried in both directions, and each time that the price moves up or down, they're intently trying to decide where to put their money. So Gerardo, you're in the hot seat. I'll turn it over to you. What would you say to resource investors who are worried about what to do next?
So look, first and foremost, let me thank you for the kind words, the introduction, and for you taking the trip out here. Obviously, over the moon to be out here, and over the moon to be able to talk gold during historic times, right? And so it's not the hot seat. I love this. I wake up to this. I go to bed with this. And so fire away. Look, I've been getting those exact same questions, right? Friends, family members, subscribers. Should I buy? Should I sell? Is gold going up? Is gold going down? All good questions. And believe it or not, even though these questions seem like opposites, I have the same answer for both. Stop paying so much attention to gold spot price and start paying attention to the bigger overall picture. Look, this is a great time to be a resource investor, a historic time, and we're fortunate to be asking these questions at all. I've been around bear markets where we didn't have the opportunity or the luxury to be asking these questions during a time where gold is at or near record highs, right? So now that gold has broken $3,000 an ounce, as I predicted it would, we're in a whole new era for resource investing. That means we're going to see new highs. Absolutely right. I believe we're going to push to new highs as the fundamental circumstances behind gold continue to push it even higher. So what does that mean? It means we're going to see larger pullbacks as the market tries to account for all of the other major macro swings out there due to global trade. President Trump, tensions with China, the Fed's treasury policy, and the many other factors that are having the day-to-day influence over the price. This isn't me trying to have it both ways. The simple answer to both your questions is no and no. But what I'm saying is that we're in an era of transformational growth in the resource space. And because gold is the leader of that resource space and has become so central, so essential, so much larger than it used to be, it's going to create bigger price swings than before. The volatility is actually our friend. So is the price of gold up today? Is it down today? Look, as a diehard gold bug who's been doing this for a long time, nearly 2 decades now, I really don't care about these day-to-day movements. That's not what I wake up to or go to bed with at night. What I care about is the much larger overall growth trend and the investments that'll make money on this growth trend, regardless of what the daily price says. I completely understand, because I've been there, why readers want to know what's happening today, tomorrow, and so on and so on. But what I'm saying is it's time to take a deep breath, to zoom out, and then to intentionally and thoughtfully make our move into the gold investments that'll show us growth and profits in these weeks, months, and years ahead. And I have really good news here. These gold investments are truly some of the most promising opportunities I've seen in my career. That's nearly 2 decades now, if you know where to look. Because you see, the speculations that I'm following are being driven by a single enormous catalyst. And that catalyst is my favorite thing in the business, and that's exploration. After years of neglect, nearly a decade, misallocated capital, et cetera, especially in the junior mining space, we're finally seeing a reversal of that negative trend. And that's because the truth of the matter is that gold exploration is playing an intense game of catch up. It's trying to keep pace with all of the resource buying that we've been seeing.
Yes, well, you're certainly not kidding. It's a trend, and it's a trend that's reversing fast. So, as I'm sure many people watching today have seen, that David Einhorn, Ray Dalio, and Stephen Lieb have new investments in gold and resource stocks. And then, of course, there's the central banks. Central banks all over the world are buying gold in quantities that honestly we've never seen before, as they scramble to balance trade deficits, uncertainty, and broken currency. And these are all trends that are going to continue. So as you can see on this chart, which we'll put up on the screen, globally, central banks are buying more than 1,000 tons of gold in a single year.
And that's just a start, frankly. It's a dramatic shift, and it's come on quite suddenly, which is why we're seeing the sky-high prices for gold. I've obviously been following it closely for nearly 2 decades. And as I just said, I'm ready, I'm here for it, and frankly, I think we're perfectly positioned for this.
Well, you're definitely in your element. And for everyone watching now, let me brag a little bit on your behalf, Gerardo, because you really have been predicting these gold highs for a long time. You've been writing about it in Junior Resource Monthly, which is your buy and hold service. You've been writing about it in Resource Stock Digest, really kind of and across the junior mining space. You've been talking about it. And you've also been preaching the need for exploration. And even during the hardest times, I know you've still found and been able to, through looking, to find profitable speculations. Now, we're going to cover some examples of those in just a moment. But what's impressed me is that you haven't needed record highs to still make money, though I'm sure that it helps.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Look, you're right. I've been really fortunate to do well, right? But as you've said, it certainly makes it much easier when you're moving with the market. And that's why I'm so excited about what we're seeing right now. So yes, I've certainly been a broken record about how we would be seeing something exactly like this. And look, frankly, I'm just glad that it's here. And just as I've hoped, these record highs are ushering in a whole new era of exploration, historic exploration. Everything is falling into place, and we'll cover that here in detail soon.
Yes, well, it certainly is. You know, and Gerardo, alarm bells have been going off in my head because, as you and I were just talking about the other day, this actually isn't the first time in history that we've seen these kind of prices. And it's also not the first time we've seen an explosion in exploration. You see, gold has actually been above $3,000 an ounce before. It's only that most people have forgotten all about it when they're saying historical highs. And that's because this actually was what the price of gold was in the 1400s in Europe. In fact, by many estimates, it was even worth more at that time, up to $5,000 an ounce. And there was a lot of strife and tension between the dominant powers of the day. Does any of that sound familiar at all? And of course, most of the known sources of gold and the easily accessible mines, those were largely tapped or access was blocked. And again, does any of this sound familiar? So, well, we know from history what happened next. That's when explorers like Christopher Columbus and Vasco da Gama, Ferdinand Magellan, Hernan Cortez, that's when they were all willing to risk life and limb to find their fortunes in gold. And that's when they took to the seas, to strange lands that they had never visited before, all in search of gold. And as we all know, it truly became what we now call the age of exploration. And of course, the world was never the same again.
Yeah, look, it's familiar because that's exactly what we're seeing, right? History doesn't repeat itself, but it absolutely rhymes many times. And so there aren't new continents to discover. And boy, are we seeing many producers come up with new ways of scouring the globe, right? Folks watching today have likely heard in the news about mining in the Arctic Circle, on the ocean floor, which was once thought impossible and frankly still seems impossible. And new sites in faraway deserts and jungles I visited recently. So look, as grades decline, as old mines fall by the wayside, that's exactly what we're seeing. And it's creating tremendous new opportunities. And the world isn't going to be the same again. It's changing. And that's what I'm excited about, John. It's the flurry of new activity in key juniors that I've been following. As I've said, my phone, and you know, by just us sitting here and it going off, has literally been ringing off the hook. And I've been on calls all day, all week, all month with a short list of explorers that are well positioned for this. It's what we've been waiting for.
Oh, absolutely. Well, Gerardo, now maybe perhaps you could take just a quick moment to tell us a little bit about this network, these people who are you're talking to, because especially for those who maybe are new to us and aren't familiar with your research, you could explain what your network is, and then in particular how it applies to these speculations, and in particular to these juniors in exploration.
Yeah, look, I've been at this for nearly 2 decades now, right? And I always pride myself on being just a simple guy with some simple ideas. And I've been really fortunate to be able to surround myself with people that have been way more intelligent than I, way better capitalized than I, way more experienced than I. And they've been so generous with their time. And so, am I a geologist? Absolutely not. But I have PhD level geologists that if I have a geology question about a new discovery, a new exploration method, a new technology, I can get on the phone and make that phone call and get one of the most educated answers to whatever my question may be, right? I'm not a financier per se in the traditional sense, but if I'm looking to capitalize a company and write a big check, I can absolutely call on my network and we could get together, you know, capital if we believe in that idea. So these decades of, you know, networking and doing things the right way and doing the business the way it was taught to me have fortunately led me to develop a large network of everything from, you know, newsletter writers to geologists to venture capitalists to CEOs that are the boots on the ground gentlemen and ladies that are out there finding new frontiers for exploration. So look, the frequent flyer miles are extensive. You know, you've been on a few of these trips, and you know, those who follow my buy and hold service, Junior Resource Monthly, know that I was just in the jungles of Peru, right? We spent 19-hour days up there. I was looking at multiple copper, gold, and gold projects, visiting in an area of the jungle inhabited by 17, at least 17 different kinds of venomous snakes. But it was worth it. There was so much to see and learn. And those readers also know that I've been to almost all 50 states now, right here in the good old US of A, where we're seeing a lot of new investments. And I've been tracking where domestic production is most profitable and most likely among juniors, right? So you asked about speculations, John, and that's where my network is even more essential. Speculations, of course, are high risk, high reward. That's the business, that's the game. And so the greater reward is for those investors who are serious and have the drive and the capital and the acumen to make the most of them. So that's why I have an entire publication dedicated to them, which is called Junior Resource Speculator, as many of you know. I've carefully designed that service to maximize these rewards in this period of time, which I'll go on the record, it's historic. That's where the depth and the breadth of my network has been part of the difference between success and between failure.
Oh, for sure. Well, and if you'll allow me to jump in and once again brag on your behalf, that's where you've been able to leverage your experience in this industry and those connections that are only possible with the time and commitment that, let's be honest here, that most armchair analysts that they don't have. And your network includes, we're not going to name drop here, but just to give people a little bit of context, but it includes industry movers and shakers like Rick Rule and Jeff Phillips and Jim Rogers and the late, great Mr. James Dines.
Look, those names you mentioned, the Jeff Phillips, the Rick Rules, who I just talked with last week and was gracious enough to grant me a phenomenal interview. And the late, great Mr. James Dines, who was a mentor to not just myself, but mentors of myself, right? Being able to learn and absorb the business from them has been absolutely game-changing for myself and by default for family, for friends, and for subscribers, right? But look, even knowing those people, it's still never as easy as it looks. And what matters is what it can show you for the speculative junior mining investments that can deliver in hard times and in good. And that is the leverage of that network, right? Being able to find deals in historic highs is easy, frankly. It's not very difficult. Doing that during tough times and separating the wheat from the chaff during historic highs, That's the hard part, and that's what I'm dedicated to doing. That's what I'm passionate about. So, for those of you that are worried that we've missed it all, not by a long shot. The fun is really just starting here now, and we got a long way to go during this cycle. So, look, I'll be very blunt for all of y'all. For those of y'all that are still stuck on the day-to-day price of gold, we don't need record highs to make money. We've made money with $1,000 gold, with $900 gold. These upper levels are enough. A few pullbacks aren't going to change our positioning or the outlook. So look, the debt isn't paid off. They're adding trillions to the deficit. The dollar index is going lower while bond yields are going higher. That's not sustainable. We haven't seen that in decades. All of that is incredibly beneficial to the gold price. And so now that the momentum has returned to gold exploration, that's what's going to sustain our profits. So it's a win-win situation, right? All the love in the world for the knowledge that Mr. Rick Roll has imparted, the late, great Mr. James Dines, their insights, their candor, and how they cultivated relationships and opportunities. It's been a privilege to see that from a distance and up close, right? But ultimately, it's going to come down to what we've been talking about today, John, and that's a new era in exploration, which is a welcome change, and it's going to propel us, as I've said, to what I believe will be the biggest gains of my career.
That's right. Well, and it's the perfect segue to talk about your track record, which is, of course, impressive. And not just because it was profitable. Now, while that's always what we care about the most as investors, but I care about what led you here, because that's the hard part after all, into how you're looking at speculations in a new light, especially now that we're seeing an unprecedented resurgence in all of this exploration. So for everyone watching, I'd like to do a quick walkthrough of 3 exploration companies that have been in your portfolio, how you found them, and the real art and science of what you were watching, what mattered the most for these speculators once we were on the other side. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about it. The first is a silver and gold explorer. And they mean it. It's actually, I think, one of their taglines that the drill bit is what drives value. And it's never been, of course, more relevant in this moment. So maybe if you could tell us a little bit about this, and for those investors who are following along with this recommendation in Junior Resource Speculator, now they made a 525% gain. So what is it that drew you to this company?
Yeah, look, I mean, I always joke that the best stories are simple stories, and this really is a simple story. Again, back to network, I've known the CEO and the chairman of this company for nearly 2 decades now. It's one of the first persons I met in this business. And when he came to me and he said, Gerardo, we have this incredible land package in a tier 1 jurisdiction, and we have this exploration analog model that is very similar, at least in the model, to a historic gold district that has produced tens of millions of ounces of gold in the similar types of rocks in a similar belt in the same part of the world. My ears perk up, right? Because again, this is not a gentleman that excites easily, as many geologists don't excite easily, right? Unless they're looking at rocks or hammering away. So look, we went through all of it. We went through share structure, the people involved, the shareholders, the land package, what it was going to cost to drill this thing, what it was going to cost to see what's there, what the limits were potentially, and what the upside was. And at the end of the day, that's really my job, is mitigating risk. It's very easy to get carried away when gold is at record highs and think of the upside. The upside takes care of itself if Mother Nature cooperates. My job is really to mitigate risk. And the way that I was able to do that with this speculation, the reason I think it's going to continue to run is by knowing the team, knowing the approach, knowing what our timeline was, and frankly, knowing that there were other projects in the portfolio that were also highly prospective. We got really, really lucky and hit a home run right off the bat. But that's a home run where we still have multiple swings and the game's far from over. So I'm excited for that one.
Right. And for everyone watching, that's why we haven't said its name, because it's actually still in the portfolio, and 525% are just the first gains. Like I said, still some more meat on those bones, as I know that you like to say. All right, well, let's get to another example. So the second one, again, maybe tell us a little bit about this junior, what they're doing, and what brought you to it.
You mentioned Jeff Phillips and Rick Roll and the late great Mr. James Dines, and added to that list should be Mr. Bob Bishop. who is a legendary investor and newsletter writer in the resource space. And he's also been somebody that's been generous to me with his time and his mentorship, and someone I catch up with every year, whether it's at conferences or on the telephone. And so I say all that to say that one day I told him, "Hey, Bob, I have this idea." And he said, "That's great, Gerardo. Everybody has great ideas. The point is, can you execute on your idea?" And so with this second company here that we're chatting about, the CEO came up to me about a year and a half ago. And it's funny, I just got off the phone with him this morning because the drills are finally turning today at this project. And he said, "Gerardo, we're drilling. This has been 19 months in the making. And it all started with an idea." And that's exactly how he pitched it to me when I met him. He said, "Gerardo, I have this great idea. There's this amazing land package in this past producing silver district, but it's been fragmented and split up into 8 different blocks. And nobody's been able to put it together because all of the landowners don't like each other. But I think I can do it." And I told him what Mr. Bob Bishop told me. I said, "Hey, that's a great idea. Give me a call if you're able to pull that off." And sure enough, for 12 months, this gentleman worked his behind off to take all this fragmented land and put the entire district back together. Now, this district hasn't seen exploration since the 1940s and 50s. It's a past producing silver district. We know the grades are high. We know that it's never been drilled below the water table. We know that there's kilometers of silver rich veins that have never been explored in a modern way. So when I tell you that's a milestone moment and historic that the drills are turning today, yeah, the 500% gains, 600% gains, all of that's exciting, but that's without a single drill hole result. And so the fun really is just starting, and the leverage that we have to silver with this is fantastic. And by the way, I'll share this. The gentleman, the CEO, has another idea that I think he's working on. So I don't think this is going to be a one-trick pony, though it's a pretty pony we have right now, and I'm excited to get on there.
Well, exciting, more from that. Well, and again, that's the difference between, look, this isn't, your buy and hold service, Junior Resource Monthly, is phenomenal. And that's what many of our, viewers are already subscribers to that. But also, I think what you were talking about, that's the difference between perhaps a buy and hold pick and then something that's a little bit more next level, where we're talking about a true speculation, something that hasn't been done, like putting a land package back together, a district back together. Like, that's the kind of stuff that I'm talking about. And that's where you can't do an internet search to find out about this stuff. You can't read about it in the mainstream media. There's literally no other way to get access to this other than your network, other than the research that you do. Like I said, not just the boots on the ground, but getting those ideas, having those conversations. Well, and last but not least, so we have one final example that, again, is directly from your Junior Resource Speculator portfolio, and it's actually a battery metals company. And maybe if you could walk us through why you were able to get so much more out of that as a speculation, even more than as a buy and hold pick.
Yeah, and you touched on a really important point, right? With the speculator service, we like to be early. It's higher risk, but higher reward. And just like the last company that we described, we were fortunate enough to be in position to, one, hear about the deal at a very early stage, but two, frankly, we took down the bulk of the first couple of financings for each of these companies, right? And so share structure is so critical in this space, knowing where the shares are, being able to get through pullbacks and being able to hold during turbulent periods. And it's easy to hold and take profits when things are good and you make a discovery, right? To be able to get in early requires that network, requires the ability to say, sure, we'll do that, but we want the bulk of the deal so we know those shares are in good hands. And so with this company, like the last company, we got there really early. We were able to finance it almost exclusively with the support of another group that's also long-term shareholders. And then frankly, we got lucky. I mean, look, the very first drill hole on this company discovered one of the largest North American lithium deposits, one of the richest ones as well, in recent memory. And to this team's credit, they are on the cusp of delivering what I think is going to be an updated feasibility study that's going to really highlight the potential upside here. And look, it's a contrarian play. I'm a contrarian by nature. It's one of my single largest, our group's single largest personal shareholdings, and we're committed to keeping with this company because the world-class nature of the assets, and now the metals mix, which they've added to it. It was originally lithium. They've added tantalum, they've added cesium. Like, what could be the biggest cesium discovery in the world? And these are all metals now that are critical, pun intended, because China's banning the export of a lot of these to the world. So, the partner companies, the companies that rely on these metals to continue to develop their supply chains, they're desperate for China independent sources and supply chains of these metals. And so we've had a pullback, a deep pullback in the lithium sector. I think it presents a phenomenal contrarian opportunity if you missed the first run up in this company, which went from here to there and now has pulled back pretty significantly. Still way above the initial levels where we got in 15, 20 times. We were up 15, 20 times, but at one point we were up 100 times in that stock. And I absolutely believe that we'll be up 100 times in that stock once again. So lots of upside. If you missed the first round, you get another go at it with this one.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for walking us through three of those examples. And again, of course, those are just three. That's just a few of what's in the actual portfolio. And of course, you've had so many other winners for silver and lithium and uranium and other key resources. So if we could go ahead and just like jump right to the punchline. So now that we're seeing a resurgence in exploration, what are you watching and what is driving the price action for speculators?
Look, we're coming into a historic era for exploration for several reasons. The first, for over a decade, companies misallocated capital. I was there for that first cycle where they were just throwing money around and not doing anything with it, frankly. And what happened after that is we had a pullback in the gold price around 2011, 2012. And the boards of directors came in and said, no more money for exploration. You guys clearly don't know what to do with it. So we had like almost a decade where exploration was just not capitalized. It wasn't funded. And that created an opportunity for a lot of our network that was out there, in the mountains, discovering new copper gold belts, discovering new techniques and testing theories while no one was looking. COVID actually helped that because we had field teams out there doing phenomenal work and doing quality work because they had the time to be able to do that. So what's driving all this? You have the major US indices that are coming off historic highs and still way overpriced, by the way. In the tech sector, there's going to be capital rotation that is happening as we speak that is going to be historic. There is a lot of money coming out of the major US indices because of volatility with tariffs, with China, with trade wars, you name it. Second to that, and probably more important than that, we have a bond market that's really fragile. And I can see a dislocation in the next 12 to 18 months. I wrote about that this past week. And look, the bond market is the global economic benchmark. If the bond market breaks, everything breaks, right? As far as the tech sector, major US indices. This is a large reason why gold is catching such a bid. There's money coming out of these different sectors looking for safe harbor a little bit at a time because the gold space is small. Only so much capital can go in at one time. It's actually the reason why Bitcoin's making new all-time highs. Capital is looking for a safe home, and exploration companies and mining resource stocks are so undervalued historically relative to the major US indices. They are at historic lows. And so a little bit of capital into this sector is already starting to ignite the 500, the 600, the 1,000% gains. We're at the very early cusp of that cycle. And so for anybody that looks at gold and says, well, man, I remember when it was $1,000. It's $3,000 now. The run must be over. Let me be safe. Nothing could be further from the truth. And I couldn't be more excited to look. I'm as busy as I've ever been. And frankly, I've never had this type of trading environment macro-wise, the setup for gold, for silver, for uranium, for lithium. And so I'm over the moon right now. It's busy, it's nonstop, but these are the cycles that we dream about. And I absolutely bet you're behind off I'm going to take advantage of the cycle for myself, for friends, for family, and of course for subscribers.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, well, maybe walk us through sort of the three things then that are igniting, well, the catalyst that you were just saying.
Yeah, look, I think, with gold at historic highs, you're going to see the major producers and the mid-tier producers have really healthy balance sheets. And sometimes it's a whole lot easier to go buy a company to go do the exploration for you than to do the exploration themselves, right? And we're seeing a lot of acquisitions. We're seeing a lot of M&A right now. That's going to continue because if you have let's say a world-class 6 million ounce gold deposit, a company in Idaho that was just permitted here in the US, every time the gold price goes up $100, they add $600 million to their net present value. So imagine what $1,000 jump in the price of gold does for the asset. That's going to spur bidding wars and premiums like we haven't seen before. And so, absolutely, acquisitions, M&A, expansion. Expansion has to happen because you're not going to be able to replenish your reserves if you're a major or a mid-tier by simply watching the gold ounces that you have in the ground come out of the ground without replenishing them. So what does that lead to? That leads to aggressive exploration. It's not a coincidence that mid-tiers and majors are now starting to come to these juniors and say, hey, you discovered this whole entire area. You have a whole belt. Your company's only worth $50 million, but we'll give you $100 million to go explore for us in the next 3 years if you give us a 50% stake. That's going to become more and more prevalent as the teams that were able to capitalize on staking land that's really prospective during the downturn now are in position to control entire belts, districts that are past producing that have never been explored. If there's going to be companies that go from 20 million to 100 million to $1 billion in 12-month timeframes. And again, you can do the math on what a $20 million market cap to $1 billion market cap does for you as a speculator if you own the stock, right? So I couldn't be more excited for it. It's high risk, it's high reward. I'm trying to mitigate the risk. The reward is there.
Well, if I may, I mean, these speculations, they're what made you a multimillionaire, and it's also what's given you a defining role in the space.
No, look, I appreciate the kind words. I've designed Junior Resource Speculator to be all about access. I've been fortunate to have access to amazing individuals. And so, my way of kind of giving that back a bit is just by providing the same access to my subscribers, right? And that includes family and friends. So, I'm proud of the service. It's a truly unique VIP level access to the best. And again, not just me, it's the network, right? The most promising, the most lucrative speculations in the junior mining space. And so this begins, and as you might expect, with what's going on to make a real life-changing difference in your portfolio. Like we're at that cusp right now. So first and foremost, you have access to growth, right? That's where I cover the high risk, high reward speculations that can pull in triple digit resource wins in a matter of months. And we've seen that many times over. You heard earlier, I'm targeting juniors with acquisitions, with expansions, and juniors that are undertaking aggressive exploration. We have to take advantage of this cycle. So my goal is to show you research that you can't find anywhere at any price. It's why I'm in the jungle for 19 hours and dodging snakes and all of that stuff, right? It's what I do. It's what I love to do, and I love sharing it and profiting from it. So we don't hold anything back. You'll get reports. You'll get videos of these same juniors that, frankly, I'm putting my own money into. I'm not a journalist. I'm not an armchair guy that sits behind a desk. I'm writing checks right alongside you. So believe me, I'm picky when it comes to finding opportunities that I think are worth my time and frankly, my money. So you're getting a lot more than just what I can find because Junior Resource Speculator also grants you access, as I mentioned, to the top insiders of the mining world. So you'll get the interviews, you'll get the on-site visits, you'll get a behind the scenes first look. You'll get my rantings, you'll get my ravings, and all the vetted deals from veteran resource experts, right? So if you've ever wanted a front row seat to the boardrooms, the family offices, the jungles, the billionaires, the good and the bad who are moving behind the curtain, this is truly a unique chance for you to join me in what I think is going to be a historic gold bull market. And look, that's what this is all about, right? So lastly, and as importantly, Junior Resource Speculator is about direct access to my research. I take a lot of pride in trying to respond to every single email that I get, right? That's something that to me I hold near and dear because I don't want to pitch a service that's premised on access and network. And then you have a question and no one answers the question. It kind of defeats the purpose, right? So look, you write in, you're going to get a response, and that could be, with the service, that could be in the podcast, that could be in an email. But at the end of the day, my job is to kind of walk you through this cycle and help you make informed decisions that are best for you and your family. And I couldn't take more pride in being able to, make myself accessible the way people have made themselves accessible to me my entire career. So every single month, you'll be able to tune in live, hear about what's moving in the space. I do that through my Junior Resource Speculator sessions, which I do every third or fourth Friday every month. And so we go over the entire portfolio. I give you my take on where things are, what's working, what's not, why not, when will it work, how you can take advantage of it. And again, answer all the questions that you have. There's a chat that's available that's live to anybody that wants to participate. So you get all of that, right? Like the goal with every speculator session is really just, again, drill down to what's happening in the industry, get right to what'll show us returns, and then again, answer all your questions. So no holding anything back. What you see is kind of what you get. You can ask me anything. I'll do my best to give you answers that'll help you find those speculations. And again, this is your all access pass. So if you've been looking for a service that delivers, we guarantee it. We offer a money back guarantee. It's as good as it gets. As we've said earlier, 525%, 550%, 608%. It's just the beginning of what's possible when you're invested in the right speculations at the right time. So name, ticker symbols, my full analysis. It's the full insider only story on these companies. It's also going to include exclusive interviews, which I just absolutely love doing with the management teams of these companies. So, these are people that I know, guys and gals that are the heart of the business, right? And I've worked with their teams of geologists and venture capitalists before and excited for this cycle to be working alongside them again. So look, folks, it's a historic market. These are the kinds of speculations that can truly change your portfolio and your life. Again, I'm a simple guy with simple ideas, and it's worked for me somehow. So I couldn't be more excited to share the information, to share the picks, and to bring people on the journey. It's going to be a fun one.
Now, just to be upfront about it, Junior Resource Speculator is a premium service, and so it's for serious investors only. And we'll be the first to say that it isn't cheap because nothing of value ever is. But given everything you'll receive, it's also a lot less than you might think, especially given the value that you're getting. Because after all, a single winning speculation is more than enough to pay for the entire thing and then some. And that's also why billionaires and some of the biggest names in the business have paid you, Gerardo, in the past for this kind of access. So you're getting a real seat at the table. And then just one quick word of warning, because this access is so exclusive and many of these companies are small and under the radar, we have restricted the number of members to just 300. So this offer is only open when spots are available. So for everyone watching, when you click the button below, you'll be able to receive opportunities that, as you've heard today, like simply aren't known or available to most of the investing public. Like this is truly exclusive, and Gerardo works overtime to ensure that it's worth every penny, and your experience, as Gerardo said, is guaranteed. You have a full 60 days to see it for yourself, and what a difference this true insider level research can make. And so that you can take your time and really see what it's all about. So we want becoming a member of Junior Resource Speculator to truly be one of the best financial decisions that you've ever made.
No, look, I live and breathe this stuff. I joke that I go to the jungle and the desert so that you don't have to. So, it's literally blood, sweat, and tears with this stuff. It's where I make the majority of my money. This is how I provide for myself and my family and friends and, everything that comes with that. So it's all in the portfolio. You'll get your monthly speculator sessions, my take on everything from macro to micro. I'm not the salesman person. The guys and gals that are with me on our team do a phenomenal job of that so that I don't have to. But look, I try to put everything I can into making this an outstanding deal for the price for anyone that's serious about speculating in the junior resource space, right? So they won't charge you a dime if it isn't for you. It's simple as that, and got my word on that.
Nope. Well, we've covered an enormous amount of ground, and a lot is happening fast. So everyone, as you heard, we're living in a new era of historic gold prices, historic prices for every resource, and they're fueling, as you heard, a long neglected amount of exploration, and Gerardo can get you started immediately.
So that's it. It's a historic cycle. I expect this to be, frankly, one of the biggest moments of my career. Gold buys are sky high. Money's changing hands. Money's moving around. There's sector reallocation that's happening, and I couldn't be more excited to be, at the front of it, and frankly, I think ahead of it. Thank you, everybody, for watching. I hope to see you soon at the next speculator session.